I just paid $6.97 a pound for the 7-bone rib roast in the bag. So stick with me and I'll show you how you might be able to do that as well. Hey guys, my name is Brian and this is the Meat Cutting Academy, where I show you how to professionally cut meat at home and save a lot of money doing it. So I've been cutting meat now since 2006. I've spent a lot of time honing my skills, learning how to cut each individual piece of meat, pretty much every way you can cut a piece of meat. This channel is dedicated to you guys, home butchery, and so I can show you guys how to cut meat at home, save a ton of money doing it, because let's face it, this is 2026. Meat prices are outrageous. So if that sounds good to you guys, please hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have your subscription and your support. And with that being said, let's get into the video. Okay guys, so the deal with this was a week before Christmas, I work at a grocery store in the meat department, of course, and we had a rib roast on sale, and they were about $6.96 a pound if you buy $50 in groceries. So we wound up buying 2 hole-in-the-bag rib roasts, and so that only cost us about, I did the math right here, so we wound up paying $144 for one and $163 for the other one. So if I were to buy those off sale, that would have been $22.99 a pound and $18.99 a pound. So both of these together would have been $944.67. So that's a savings of over $600. So that's a great deal, and I know a lot of people can't afford to buy, to pay over $100 for a hole-in-the-bag rib roast. But if you can maybe put away money and wait for these holiday seasons to come up, even Easter is kind of a ham season, so that's not really a good season to buy a rib roast. But Christmas and Thanksgiving, those are both great times to buy rib roasts, more so Christmas. So honestly, I really don't think that those prices are going to ever be that good again, unfortunately. But I've been surprised in the past. Anyway, that being said, guys, let's get right into this. Not as bloody as I was imagining it was going to be. Honestly, if they're that bloody when they come out of the cryovac, most likely that means that it was frozen in the past, and that's when you see all that blood pooled up in the cryovac. That's exactly what that means. So first off, guys, a lot of times during the holiday season, you'll see these guys with twine on them, and that means they were cut and tied, which means these ribs were cut off to the point where it hinges like that, and then they're tied back on. I'm not sure why people want to do that for. I would just oven roast these just boneless without the bone, and throw the bone in the pressure cooker or the slow cooker. That's my favorite way of cooking beef ribs. But that's personally what I would do. But anyway, let's go ahead and cut these ribs off here. Obviously, not a lot of us have bandsaws at home that cut meat, so you wouldn't be cutting bone-in steaks. So what you'd want to do is either, if you wanted to roast, you'd have to cut in between these rib bones, which is usually pretty simple. Although sometimes when they cut these at the slaughterhouse, they keep a little bit more bone on there sometimes. So it's a little bit harder to get in between these ribs. But let me show you how that's done here. So right here, in between these ribs, you'll see like a little gap in between these bones right here. So if you wanted to cut a roast out of that, hopefully you can see that okay. You just get right in between these bones and just cut all the way through. And this happens to be a 2-bone roast. So if you wanted a bone-in roast, you could still do that without making this boneless or cutting the ribs off if you didn't want to. But we're not going to do that here. So if you want to, that's fine. I'm not going to do that personally. So I'm going to set that aside. And what we're going to do, now we have a 5-bone rib roast, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these only come in 7 bones. The ribs only have 7. So a lot of people want 8 bones. That's kind of hard to do. So, all right, so what we're going to do is take your knife, and you don't have to be delicate about this. Just take your knife, go right along these ribs, And what you want to do is push in to the rib bone. You're not going to, over time you might dull your knife a little bit. It just happens. That's the way it is. But you want to ride that bone. So go all the way down. I had to go maybe 2 inches down, all the way back. Pushing against that rib, because you don't want to have too much meat on these ribs. You want to all stay on this. So cut down. You don't have to baby it or anything. All the way down till you get to about right there. Then just kind of cut in a little bit. Right there, it's good enough. And then you want to flip this around. Right? And I'll try to cut it where you guys can see that. So you come underneath these ribs right here. And just cut all the way with your knife kind of tilted upwards so you don't cut too much meat. And then cut the ribs off. That simple. You don't have to be a whiz to know how to do it. So there you go. Here's a 5 bone rack of ribs. We're going to set that aside. Now let's go take the ribs off of this one. Again, cut along these bones, push in with your knife, cut all the way down until you see that kind of drop, and then you come back over here, go underneath those bones right here, and cut them off. Nice and clean. All right, guys, so now what we're left with is our boneless rib roasts. And this is pretty lean, so I think I might leave this on here. Normally what I would do is go ahead and pre-cut that fat off. I know a lot of meat shops don't like that, basically because you're cutting into the profits, but on a lot of those you have these real thick hunks of fat. I like to cut those off, but we're not going to do that on this one. So now you have to decide whether you want thin cuts or thick cuts. I prefer about 3/4 of an inch personally, maybe 1/2 inch, just to make these go farther. We're probably going to get at about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4. We'll get about 40 plus ribeyes out of this. That's pretty good. Now, normally what I would do is I would square this up, but I'm really not wanting that much trim. So what I'm going to do is kind of angle my cut based on the angle that this is. So I'm just going to come in here and cut about a 1/2 inch steak like that, and then I'm going to just keep going down as I go. And try not to judge me. These are my wife's knives. I leave mine at work, unfortunately, for everybody else to mess up. So I got to resharpen my knives when I get to work usually. But anyway, these are hers. I don't really prefer pink. So let's keep cutting this guy here. Look at those beautiful steaks. This is part of the chuck end of the rib roast, where you get a lot more of that fat and marbling in here. That's where that comes from, the chuck end. And then the other end, that's where you get that's where the rib meets the New York. So I'll have to show you on the diagram here. So as you can see, we have our rib right here. This right here, this little section up top here, that's where your ribeyes come from, that little section of cow. And right at the front of this, that's where your chuck, your whole chuck, primal, subprimal meets your rib primal. That butts up against your rib. And right here in the back, that's the short loin, that's where your New Yorks come from. New Yorks are right here. And past that is your sirloin. That's right in this area right here. That's where your sirloin is attached to your loin. And then past that, you're round. So anyway, get back to the rib. The larger end on the rib roast, that's connected with your New York end. So that's why I say the small end is connected to the chuck. That's where your chuck eyes meet your rib eyes. And then it gets leaner about here, but from here down, it's a little bit leaner. All right, guys, back to cutting their steaks here. And then you can also cut real thick ones if you wanted to as well. I mean, it just depends on whatever you want, you can do it. So I'm going to continue cutting my 1/2-inch steaks here. This one's a little bit thinner. Perfect. Now, if you wanted to, this is also called the tail. If you wanted to cut some of that off, you could, or you could leave it on, and that fat will kind of render in the pan and help flavor up your meat. So I'm just going to leave that on there. Square this end up. Looks kind of funky, just kind of hanging out of there. Now with this one, this does kind of have a larger tail on it, so I think I might trim that off right about, ooh, I want to dump it off the table. Right about here is where I'm going to cut that. I was always trained as a meat cutter to never do this, just because sometimes you cut into some of that fat or that meat right there, but sometimes that's kind of unavoidable. And if you're cutting these into steaks and then trimming it, you're still taking off some of that meat. So you can always trim that off. That's what obviously I'm going to do. It's a ribeye. I'm not going to waste it. So, and just come in here and just kind of clean that up a little bit. Nice clean. Okay, now I'll go ahead and finish cutting my steaks here. Beautiful steaks. And if you guys want, you guys can still possibly get a deal like this. A lot of the warehouses from your local grocery stores ordered a little bit heavy. A lot of them did for the rib roast, and a lot of places are still sitting on some ribs, some 7-bone rib roasts, and they're needing to get rid of those at a cheaper rate. So I would pay attention to your grocery store. You might still be able to pick some of these up at a decent price, because I guarantee in the next couple weeks these babies are going back right back up to $17, $18 a pound plus. I live in Southern Oregon, so our ribeyes are right around $18 to $20 a pound. Keep cutting it. Nice uniform steaks. And you know, I don't expect everybody to have the same experience I do, so feel free to go a lot slower. You don't want any wedge cuts, which are, you know, kind of having your knife cut at that angle so you have a wedge when you're done. All right, this one's going to be kind of funky just because the end was kind of a weird angle. So what I'm going to do is just kind of cut my normal steak, and then this end will be like a breakfast steak. There you go. See, it's kind of odd shaped, but that'll make a perfect breakfast steak. So how many steaks did I get here? I got, out of that one piece, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I don't think I counted that one. So 22 steaks out of that one 7-bone. That is fantastic. All right, I'm going to put those up here. Now, time for our second one. They're a little bit aged. I should have cut these like a week ago, but they still smell pretty good. Now this is also, if you ever wanted to wet age meat, that's how you do it. That's what that's called, is wet aging. You just let that sit in the bag for however long you want. And obviously you want to trim it up a little bit, but that's what's referred to as wet aging. Or you could do dry aging, where you put on some, stick it in your refrigerator and then let the fan blow on it and let it dry out. And then after about a few weeks, like a month, and just cut all the dry off, and then in the middle it's just going to be super, super soft and tender. It just lets all that, everything that's in these guys break down the meat. So it just becomes super, super soft. That's what Whole Foods Market does. You see those in the back of the store. They have these kind of rotating in the back, dry aging. That's exactly what they do. All right, so now we're going to cut this whole rack of ribs off. Come in like I showed you. Cut right on those bones. All the way down. Watch your fingers. Take your time, you don't have to go as fast as I do. There we go. Turn it like that. Cut in the bottom of this bone here, face up. And cut it all the way through. There we go. Another perfect rack of 7-bone ribs here. Beautiful. I just got done cutting about 30 of these guys yesterday and today. That was a lot. And then I prefer to do also, you see this skin right here? Right here? That's what's called bone skin. It's different than silver skin. This is connective tissue that connects this to bone. So you want to take that off, because if you cook it with that on there, it's going to be pretty tough, and you're not going to enjoy chewing that. So I'd always recommend, if you see that, you just cut that off. So I like to get as close as I can to it. Like that. That's pretty good. That's just a little bit of fat right there. I'm just going to take off. And I'm not too worried about it. There's a little bit there, but I'm not really going to fuss over it. This would be a perfect little snack for my dog. If you have dogs, that'd be perfect for them too. Put that there. And this one doesn't really have a lot of fat on there. If I was at work, I'd probably cut that off. Probably just start about midway through, all the way down, just so we produce so many of these things. Like I said, yesterday I cut about, about 8 cases of ribs, and that contain 3 whole rib in each case. So that was about 24 plus ribs right there. So I definitely don't want to take the time to cut the fat off of each individual one. That just takes way too much time. So back to cutting our 3/4 inch. And what you could also do too, if you wanted a boneless rib roast, you can just cut any size rib roast you want. And if you wanted to, you can tie it on there, but I really don't see a point in tying your rib roast, honestly. That's just for tying the bone back on. So it's kind of pointless to tie something that's already boneless, unless you're throwing it in a crock pot and you want it to hold together. It's really what that's for. So let's go ahead and cut our 3/4 inch steaks. Just try to keep your knife steady as you can. This is the proper knife grip right here. A lot of guys will do this. I don't like doing that. It's kind of dumb. It just puts too much pressure on my index finger. So I like to hold my knife just like that. And this blood does get a little bit slippery, so be careful. And every now and then, take your steel, steal your knife. Keep your knife nice and sharp. This will save your wrist. Trust me, I know. I've had carpal tunnel surgery on both hands. A lot easier to cut through, especially after cutting that on that bone like that. That'll really take an edge off pretty quick. Come down. What a lot of restaurants will do, well, I've never seen these actually sold personally, but the cap of a rib, I guess they just get those real fancy restaurants. So buy these with the caps detached, And I mean, I know for a fact that they're super tender, but I would never pay that price for them. Whatever they charge, I'm sure it's ridiculous. But in my opinion, that's a waste of a ribeye. Way after this, I'm going to be sick of cutting ribeyes. Still have about, I'd say, 20 cases to go at work. And we're selling those at $7.96 a pound. I'm definitely going to be buying more of those. Now, if I had a 10-inch Cimeter knife, I would definitely be using this over this, just because it's a little bit hard to cut through with the, I think this is about an 8-inch. So it's a little hard to cut through and all the way back. You'd have to, yeah, I mean, it's obviously doable, but all right. And this one, it's going to be a little bit thicker just because that's what I'm left with. So instead of cutting, you know, I could do that, but I'm just going to cut that right in half. Perfect. All right, let's see how many steaks I got up for this one. Make sure I don't have any more over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's what, 41, 42 steaks. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, that is amazing. And let's see the fat on here. See, some of the tails are a little bit fatty. They're pretty easy to trim, I'll show you. Now these guys, they don't have too bad of a tail on them. This is our chuck end. These are really nice, beautiful looking steaks. So right about, even that one's okay for me, I think. That one's good. So right about now, that's when I'm going to start trimming some of this off. That's just a little bit too much fat. So let's put these aside, and we'll go ahead and start trimming these. I like to just kind of follow that contour down. So follow that contour down like that. So just cut it right there. Just cut a little bit off. Still left with a little bit of fat on that tail, and that'll render down and help flavor up that meat. Just go all the way down. Just trim it off as much or as little as you want, or none at all. You don't have to. This is just my own personal preference. Super easy, guys. Super, super simple just to do this stuff at home. Nothing to it. And of course, I always recommend any beginner use a cutting glove. You definitely don't want to cut your fingers. Not fun. I normally wear a cutting glove, but today I decided not to. And really, that's all this and this. That's really all the fat waste we have. And I'm going to take the meat off of this, so it's even less. And you can render that down if you want to, and use that to cook any other steaks, add some flavor to them. So I definitely wouldn't waste any of that fat. All right, guys. Sorry, I reached my capacity for video on the card there, so the camera stopped by itself. Anyway, I trimmed off all that meat that I left on there, and really all there's left is just a small little, maybe that's not even like a quarter pound of meat that's on there. So really very, very little wasted, if anything at all, really. And I mean, you could use something like that in like a beef quesadilla in the morning with cheese. I mean, that doesn't have to be wasted at all. You don't have to toss it or whatever. So hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please, if you wouldn't mind, give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps my channel grow. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.